Hi, welcome to Albert's Group Training. I'm Claire.
Hi, and I'm Jeremy. Today we're going to look at our very first New Year, New You webinar on the 26th of January between 2 and 5. This webinar looks at mental health in the workplace, legalities around medication and employment law issues. It cuts the chase, it's no nonsense, nothing airy-fairy or fluffy about it, and it's aimed at absolutely everybody, whether you're an employer, whether you're an employee, whether you're a supplier, a client, whether you're in a managerial position or not. You need to understand the importance of mental health. It's not a movement, it's not a buzzword. Mental health in the workplace is real, and it's a major problem. And it's a problem because so many of us are ignorant and we don't understand it. So it's easy to dismiss, and that stigma will remain indefinitely if we don't start addressing it in the right way.
Yeah, I'm really excited to co-host our webinar, which is called the 2021 Road to Recovery. And as Jeremy said, it's part of our New Year, New You campaign, looking at empowering people, motivating people and supporting each other.
Yeah, I think the issue is, last year we saw a massive movement around Black Lives Matter. The year before that, it was empowering women in business. There does seem to be lots of these movements, and at the moment it's all about mental health and mental wellness, etc., especially in January, with suicide rates increased massively, certainly in men between ages of 30 and 50. And I feel that a lot of companies jump on the bandwagon and say that they are on board. They do understand these different issues, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's the gay community, whether it's empowering women. And I just feel a lot of companies pay lip service. So this is why this particular webinar, we are cutting out all of the sugarcoating. We're removing all the sugarcoating, and we're focusing on the core issues within this area. So this is a belts and braces 3-hour webinar aimed at educating people around mental health illness.
Yeah, a topic that I think a lot of people, whether it's first-hand or second-hand, can relate to. We've had a few questions emailed into us and sent through social media about the webinar, which, Jeremy, as it was your idea in the first place, I wonder if you're best placed to answer the questions.
I'll give it a go.
So the first question is, where does the webinar take place?
Okay, so it's being held via Zoom webinar as a webinar, and I don't know whether you've done webinars before, but if you have, you'll know that the only people that are visible are the presenters. Everyone else is anonymous, and it's absolutely critical that all delegates remain just that, anonymous, because as Claire said earlier on in the video, she's going to be managing the message board, and people will be messaging Claire, and they don't want their ID being disclosed. They don't want to be exposed in any way. So, if you've ever attended a business networking event, it's hard enough to get generic questions, circulated within a forum, because people don't like asking questions because they're divulging something that they're not knowledgeable about. And we all like to feel that we are a fountain of knowledge. So once we ask a question, some people feel that that's a sign of weakness, that we are ignorant to a specific area of business. And if you can actually put that in the context of mental health, it's an incredibly sensitive and private matter. So all delegates must remain anonymous, and when people they message Claire, it will be in strictest confidence, and their identity will not be known to anybody else. So the 4 panelists will be seen on the webinar,
as will I,
as will Claire, but nobody else.
Yeah, so it's one thing to be at a networking event and ask a question of a commercial cleaning company about their COVID policies. That's fine. I wouldn't have any qualms doing that. But if I wanted to ask a question relating to somebody in my team's mental health or their medication or something sensitive, I don't think I would want to stand up and do that publicly. So we will respect your anonymity, and questions will be asked as a delegate has asked XYZ. So the next question, Jeremy, is what inspired you to put the webinar on?
Well, I've been suffering with my own mental health issues for at least 3 decades now, but finally I plucked up the courage in February 2020 to talk to a doctor, which was a complete waste of time. Never mind the issues that I've faced in business. That I just feel that so many people are ignorant to this subject, and I'm not trying to pioneer some kind of movement here. What I'm trying to do is get the message out there to employers, to anybody, whether they're employers or whether they're self-employed. It really doesn't matter. If you're dealing with people, understanding mental health is enormous, and I've been misunderstood, and I feel that there are a lot of people out there that have been misunderstood, and I think that there are some people out there as well that hide behind a label. Oh, it's okay, I've got bipolar. Oh, it's okay, I've been diagnosed with depression. No, it's not okay for one to behave unprofessionally. If they swear at a client, that's unprofessional, whether they're mentally stable or not. If they turn up to work and they haven't washed for a few days and they're stinking of stale alcohol, that is absolutely unacceptable. But it's how the managerial team deal with that and how HR deal with it. It's understanding what medication, if any, these people are on. Also, people coming off medication, that their behaviour might be erratic. And I've dealt with all this as a manager, but I've also dealt with it on a personal level as well. And I've seen it rolled out on so many occasions. And I just feel that this webinar, because it is cut to the chase, it's removing all the BS, it's focusing on the core fundamental points of recognising mental health in the workplace and well-being of employees, that I feel that this webinar is entirely necessary, especially during these unprecedented times.
Yeah, I must say I agree. And I think with a lot of people working from home, it's also very difficult to keep an eye on people as much as you should. So bosses aren't in the office with a team in the office with them. They might have a weekly Zoom catch up. We can all put on a brave face for a Zoom for an hour, but it's picking up on the little things. It's checking in with each other, whether you're a manager or a team member, really. So going back to the questions, the next question is, you've mentioned a panel. Who is on your panel?
Okay, so we've got 4 panelists. We've got a gentleman by the name of Fergus, who has had 20 years experience in business and been in business management for a long period of time. He's retrained as a counsellor and a psychotherapist, so he's going to be touching on looking for signs of staff that might be struggling with their mental health. Moving on to our next speaker, we've got Rachel, who's a HR director, and Rachel will be talking about, I suppose, the employment law side of things, the legalities around having somebody in the workforce with mental health issues, how to deal with them in the right way, if they have done something that is considered as a breach of contract or bringing the company into disrepute, then how do you deal with that? And also, if you as a manager feel that one of your staff members is struggling with their mental health, how do you tackle that? What are employees liable to tell their employers? For example, if I'm working on a construction site and I'm, processing kind of huge tons of equipment, and I'm managing cranes and forklift trucks and things like that. If I'm on some kind of medication that could make me feel drowsy, that could potentially be fatal. So, as an employee, where's the threshold between what's law and what's not law when it comes to disclosing anything that you've been diagnosed with and any medication that you've been prescribed? So that then moves on to Tina Malone, who is a BAFTA award-winning actress, and also she's a corporate mindset coach. She's going to be talking about mindset change in the workplace, so turning a potential negative into something positive, and how one can see themselves dealing with somebody in that situation where they are vulnerable. They are a good member of staff. You don't want to lose them, but you feel that mentally they're not right. They might be behaving erratically, they might not be themselves. You may even get complaints from their colleagues or clients, and other people might be flagging up issues around their performance, for example. So how do you deal with that from a mindset and an empowerment perspective? So Tina will touch on that. And frankly, I don't think that you can run a workshop like this, a webinar like this, and not have a pharmacist on the panel. It's amazing how many well-being courses, corporate this, corporate that, employment law, employment this, occupational therapy courses, workshops, seminars, webinars, Zoom meetings. I've seen them all, and I look at the panel and they haven't got a pharmacist on the panel. To me, a pharmacist is probably one of the most important people, because they will know what people are being prescribed even, what medication they're on, so how does that, what does that look like in the context of business? He will be able to talk about, and I'm talking about the chap that we've got doing this, Sunil will be talking about medication. And we'll also be talking about illegal substances as well, because what you tend to find is people that are under huge amounts of pressure, they're expected to work 16, 18-hour days, ridiculous targets that are almost impossible to hit. And they're using substances because they've had 50 cups of coffee and it hasn't touched the side. So they're using a stimulant, an illegal substance. And that could be anything from amphetamine to cocaine, to get them going. And then they're using a sedative to calm them down and give them a few hours of sleep. So it's not just I've been prescribed this or I've been prescribed that. It's looking at, as I said earlier, it's about erratic behaviour. It's about changes in people's persona, how they are being with other people. You might think, crikey, I wouldn't have expected that person to have done that, or why have they said this? It's so unlike them. So the drug side of it, whether it's pharmaceutical
or over the counter,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some over the counter meds that can make you feel quite squiffy, and also if people are drinking alcohol. So if you mix all that up with antidepressants, alcohol, over the counter stuff, there could be a real issue. And the use of drugs, and I use the word drugs as in, alcohol is a drug, codeine is a drug, paracetamol is a drug, heroin's a drug. So it's not necessarily looking at what's right and what's wrong, what's morally right, what's morally wrong. It's looking at specific drugs that are taken in the workplace, whether they're legal or illegal. So Sunil will be able to provide a bit of clarity around that, which will dovetail in with the other three panelists in Fergus, Rachel and Tina.
Yeah, it all sounds really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. One other question we've had is the format. So obviously you've gone through the panelists. Will there be time? How does it work with Q&A?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we were toying with the idea of just having all four panelists talking and then having a giant Q&A at the end. But the problem is, if something comes up to a delegate, they might forget what they wanted to ask 2.5 hours later on down the line. So we're going to have Fergus talking for 30 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. Then we're going to have Rachel talking for 30 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. Then we're going to have Tina talking for half an hour, followed by a Q&A session. And finally, Sunil doing the same. So we're going to have the speaker first, followed by a Q&A relevant to what's just been discussed. And I cannot reiterate enough that this will be in strictest of confidence. Your identity will not be known.
And also, somebody's asked whether the panelists will be available for questions away from the webinar. So if somebody's got a question that's very specific to them and their needs, will they be able to contact the panelists after the event directly to go through any questions they've got specific to them and their situation?
Yeah, another great question. The panelists I've known for quite some time, and they're all very receptive to being contacted. So obviously, if delegates even feel uncomfortable about putting a question forward to Claire because they're so scared that their identity might be revealed or they might be exposed, but they have a question that they really want to ask Tina or Fergus, Rachel or Sunil, then all they need to do is contact me and I will put them in contact with the relevant person, and they are very open to continue conversations and keep those lines of communications open, because otherwise what's all this for? I mean, it's a complete waste of time. You know, if people need further counsel, then that support will be there for them to use.
Yeah, our panelists are doing this to support as many people as they can in as many ways as they can, and they appreciate, I'm sure, that some people's questions might be very specific to them, or like you say, they might not want to share it with me even, so they will be there should they be needed.
And I also think it's worth pointing out as well that we're all in business to make money and we're all in business to profit, but that honestly is secondary to the reason for why we put this webinar on. As somebody who has struggled with their mental health for 3 decades, I've been victimised, persecuted and misunderstood for years. I feel there are a lot of people out there that are really good. They're really good people, but they're just not getting the support. And they're not getting the support not because their employer or their manager doesn't care about them. They are just ignorant to what's going on. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread the message that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to talk. It's okay to break down. It's fine for men to cry.
It's okay to ask for help.
And it's okay to ask for help. And someone messaged me today saying they're really struggling with their mental health. And I just said, here's my number, give me a call, give your friends a call, give a doctor a call, call Samaritans, just call somebody and talk to them.
There's also a lot of helplines out there for people who might not want to actually talk, where you can text or message, or there's lots of different ways. Yeah. And I'm sure all our panelists, if somebody doesn't feel comfortable picking up the phone, they'd be quite happy to chat over email if that's easier.
Absolutely.
And so I think you've covered all the questions. So yeah, if anybody is interested in joining us or wants any more information, I will put our website in the comments below. We've got a dedicated page which gives a little bit more of an insight into what each of the panelists is going to talk about. So I'll pop that link in the bottom, and our contact details are on there. So hopefully we'll see you on the 26th.